Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, classic, lesson known classics. This is episode number 2729 and Doubleshot number 2623. I have two sci-fi trades. One is standalone, the other is a finale for a run. First up we have is Martian Manhunter Identity. This collects the entire 5th volume for Martian Manhunter, which makes it only the second ever volume I ever reviewed because I reviewed volume 3 already. And if you're curious, have you the volume that keeps between 3 and this one? No, I have not. So, in the case of this particular book, it is roughly 12 issues. It's written by Steve Orlando and Riley Russo. This, from what I can tell reading this book, it's like a modern day retelling of the classic stories, like from our review for Showcase Events Martian Manhunter Volumes 1 and 2, which collected, I think it was the comics from, I think it was 225 to 226, and the issues from Mystery to House of Mystery. Think of this book as a modern day retelling of those stories. The Human Flame is not here in these stories at all. Mostly put, you have Martian Manhunter work with basically his partner. What is her name? I think it's Diana, I think her name is. Diane. Yes, Diane. Now, also, Martian Manhunter is not... Now, by the way, the book is drawn by Riley Russo. Now, he draws them in the classic style from the 50s. And there's stuff revealed about him in here. The fact... Okay, if you're curious, this is sort of a reboot of Martian Manhunter in a way. Now, is his weakness still fire? Yes. Is his human identity Detective John Jones of some police force? Yes, except for some small town this time, not from major city. Number 3, he is black. Now, here's the thing. I have no issue with this at all, because Martian Manhunter, he's a shapeshifter. Of course he assumed the identity of a black guy. I mean, a name like John Jones, associated with a black guy. Now, if you're curious, was taken from some TV show that he's now black now. There's been 2 depictions of him basically where his human form is black. Okay. The first one was Smallville, and the second one, and the most popular one, people love this version of Martian Manhunter, and that was the one from Supergirl. You're thinking, wait a minute, what about the guy who voiced Martian Manhunter from Just Like Emily? Wasn't he also black? Yes, he was. But he didn't play in live action. He did basically play the father of that character. And of course, they had this whole thing where he was Hank Henshaw. And it turns out he watched Hank Henshaw. He basically took an identity from the real Hank Henshaw, who was black. Excuse me. Now, the whole thing with Martian Manhunter in this continuity of this book is that apparently on Mars, now, if you're curious, was he a police officer on Mars in this continuity was the original one? Yes, he was. Now, was it the same type of transport on Earth like it was in the original continuity? Yes. Did he die? Yes, he did. As a matter of fact, this book also collected his debut from comic 225. So, mostly put, they basically deal with Vulture in here, which it's not basically a Spectre-like version of them. It's more like a human trafficking ring for some reason. I'm not sure why. Of course, here's the thing. In the original stories, Diana never found out John Jones was Martian Manhunter. She never found out at all. In this book, she does. I guess Steve Orlando must have read those stories very thoroughly and probably realized, though, yeah. And also, they're living together. I'm like, that's kind of weird. Yes. In this book, living together, are they a couple? It's not specifically revealed. It could be a couple. Since when do partners live together like your roommates? Oh yeah, and also, here's the thing. Diana had a relationship with another woman. Yep, she did. It was with the local coroner. Now, who's also a detective for some reason. Now, the captain had no issue with it at all. Purely because basically he may have found out about it, but he's like, it's fine. sell your business behind closed doors. Don't bring it to work. Yeah, from what I can tell, he's not a bigot about it. He's just basically very neutral about it. He's not exactly supporting it per se. He just like, it's your business. Deal with it. Which, fine. Normally, in a situation like this, a lot of the time, usually when someone finds out someone is gay, I'd say about 50% of the time fiction, usually they're against it. In the case of the Flash TV show, when Pied Piper revealed to his parents that he was gay, they disowned him. Yes, they did. Because when the episode popped up in where his father did acknowledge the fact he had a son because he was gay. Yeah, so they free another Martian who actually survived. Also, apparently, the Manhunters on Mars never actually have partners. They basically work alone. And apparently, Martian was a crooked cop on Mars. I'm like, that's interesting. And there's also a brief appearance here by John's brother. Yeah, he makes a very brief appearance in this book. I'm glad the fact that Steve acknowledged him, because here's the Whitney Marshmander. He has like 2 or 3 bad guys. And that's pretty much it. But I did enjoy this book overall. I'm going to give this book roughly a 9 out. Also, the whole thing with John Jones, he stopped assuming John Jones to become Marshmander. He takes identity, and here's the weird thing. There's no man just singing here or that can do any superhero. I found that kind of weird about the book. But I really enjoyed it. And here's a fun fact, Marshmander, when it comes to him as a book. This is the most recent thing released for him. As for the reason for it, I have no idea why there have not been any more Marshmander book released. I mean, the way this book is written, he could have made this an ongoing series, but he didn't. Also, be curious though, is his comedic sidekick from those later stories in this book? Not really. I think he felt as though it was necessary. I think the reason they created Zoink because Batman had Batman, Martian, Superman had mixed book, so why not create Zoink? Alright, next up we have is Guardians of the Galaxy by Collin, Kelly, and Jackson Loring, Volume 2, Grootrise. This collects Guardians of the Galaxy. I believe this is like Volume 6 or 7, issue 62, and the annual, which I believe this is the like 6 annual overall. Mostly put what happens in here. Well, apparently the Guardians die and then they come back as Groot people. All of them for some reason. Like, not just they have Star-Lord come back as what they like. Apparently they remember the fact, oh, he's got a sister. Yeah, this kind of brings it back. Gamora gets turned into 2, along with Nebula, who's a cyborg. And of course, Rocket is able to get Groot back to where he was. And then by the end of this book, the Guardians disband again. I'm like, why? It makes no freaking sense. Like, you bring this group back, and then you just disband them again. Pretty interesting book run for what it was. I'm going to give this book roughly a 9 out of 10. Final thoughts on this run for Guardians of the Galaxy. This was weird, this run was. I didn't expect it the last 10 issues. Now, I did ask basically Jackson, I think it was Jackson Lenz, I think I met one of the writers of this book. I did ask him about this when I making our later this year. Was Nebula out of the team because she's part of the Guardians in Volume 3? No. He did it because he wanted to do something different. Fine. The whole thing with them acting the way they do in this book is weird. It's like, I think I know the reason why the book didn't last very long. Because I think we're so used to, people were used to basically how the previous writers wrote the Guardians. And people like that version. This was a new take, and my guess is that people didn't really like it very much at all. Not really. Where you have Star-Lord, basically, it's like a Western type of thing. I get the reason why they released this book was because at the time last year was because, well, Guardians Volume 3 was coming out, so I guess they figured, oh, why not? Yes. Yeah, also we're clearing the book, but they don't really do anything to read the book. And I read this book, I'm like, wait a minute, where's Nova? I'm like, oh, I remember now, he's an X-Men Red. Yes. Now, do I think there should be another Guardians book? Yes. They're still very beloved characters, people still like them. If I think of one person who had a really good run for Guardians after the original creators, Bendis had a really interesting run. I never thought anybody's run was bad per se. I was surprised that, like, I kind of felt as though that the previous run by Al Ewing, great run, not a bad issue the whole book. I think it was a mistake Marvel that canceled the book after 18 issues. Yes, it did last a bit longer than Donny Coastman. It felt like it was a continuation of that run. Just that the only change that was made was that Rock was wearing a suit now. Here he's back to wearing his real costume that he wore in Donny Coastman's run. I'm like, okay. Yeah. I had nothing against, basically, of how the style of the book, the tone was not really the issue that I have with the book. Or the Western stuff they were trying to do with the book. That's not my issue with the book. My issue with the Guardians was themselves. It's just that when I think of the Guardians, I don't think of this. I do appreciate the artwork. Artwork is really good. Yes. By the way, this book was only $9.99. This book, which is not surprising for that. Basically, issue 6 now by Alex Lenz, and the rest of the book is done by Kemp Walker. The cover artist Marco Garciso and Enrico Eliso, who did 6 and 7. And the rest of the book is Brian Venecia. Yeah. Of course, the book is only identified as Guardians Galaxy Volume 2 Grootrise. I'm like, why don't I just call it Guardians Galaxy by Collin, Jackson, Loring? Because it's their run. And if you're curious, was the previous book called that? There's your answer. No, it was not. Yeah. So, like I just said, do I think the book should come back? Yes, it should. Who should write it? How about Jonathan Hickman? He's pretty good sci-fi stuff. I can see him doing it. I mean, he did Avengers after all. He's done some X-Men work. Yes, I know his X-Men work has not been well received. How do I give him a shot at the Guardians? I don't see why not. I mean, it might be an interesting idea for him to do something, refresh himself after doing his brief era. His sci-fi stuff is really. I've always loved the sci-fi stuff he did. So I would pick him to succeed these two writers. Excuse me. But yeah, that's pretty much a particular view. Also, what we're going to give these books for Martian Manhunter, give that a 9. For Guardians of the Galaxy at 8.5. Okay, so that's pretty much a particular view. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe to notifications, and do not hit that like button. Okay. Excuse me. See you tomorrow for more anime. Okay, next video. Bye.